All right, it's good to see everyone. It's been a couple weeks since we've had Bible class, and next week, um, Leon is coming in, so I'll say it again. All right, good morning, all. So it's good to be back, and this is just a tease because next Friday I will not be here. Going up to New York for my grandson's first birthday. So that'll be the last time I foresee being away until July. Yeah, we're going up Thursday late afternoon, so won't be able to teach the class next Friday. So, and one more coming in. Okay. Just waiting for, there we go. Okay, so we left off, I'll do the bracha in a moment. We left off at verse 30 of chapter 20 of the book of Judges, and I just want to read quickly the English from the beginning of the chapter through verse 29, just so that we are reminded of where we left off. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So, reading from the bottom of page 303 in our text, then, so remember the incident of this concubine that had been raped by the inhabitants of this town of Gibeah, and that then the husband cuts her up into 12 parts and distributes each of the parts to all the tribes of Israel. And then 303, then all the children of Israel went out, and the congregation was assembled as one man from Dan even to Beersheba with the land of Gilead unto the Lord at Mitzpah. And the chiefs of all the people, even of all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 footmen that drew sword. Now the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Israel were gone up to Mitzpah. And the children of Israel said, "Tell us, how was this wickedness brought to pass?" And the Levite, the husband of the woman that was murdered, answered and said, "I came unto Gibeah, that belongs to Benjamin, I and my concubine to lodge. And the men of Gibeah rose against me, and beset the house round about upon me by night. Me they thought to have slain, and my concubine they forced, and she is dead. And I took my concubine, and I cut her in pieces, and sent her throughout all the country of the inheritance of Israel, for they have committed lewdness and wantonness in Israel. Behold, ye are all here, children of Israel, give here your advice and counsel." And all the people arose as one man, saying, "We will not any of us go to his tent, neither will we any of us turn into his house. But now this is the thing which we will do to Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot, and we will take 10 men of 100,000, all the tribes of Israel, of 100, yes, and 100 of 1,000, and 1,000 out of 10,000, to fetch victuals for the people, that they may do, even when they come to Gibeah of Benjamin, according to all the wantonness that they have brought in Israel." So all the men of Israel were gathered against the city, knit together as one man. And the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What wickedness is this that has come to pass among you? Now therefore deliver up the men, the base fellows that are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and put away evil from Israel." But the children of Benjamin would not hearken to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of their cities unto Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel. And the children of Benjamin numbered on that day out of the cities 26,000 men that drew sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who numbered 700 chosen men. All this people, even 700 chosen men, were left-handed. Every one could sling stones at a hairbreadth and not miss. And the men of Israel beside Benjamin numbered 400,000 men that drew sword, All these were men of war. And the children of Israel arose, went up to Bethel, and asked counsel of God. And they said, who shall go up for us to battle against the children of Benjamin? And the Lord said, Judah first. And the children of Israel rose up in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin. And the men of Israel set the battle in array against them at Gibeah. And the children of Benjamin came forth out of Gibeah and destroyed down to the ground of the Israelites on that day 22,000 men, right? Because they're left-handed. They were shooting from a way that the people of Israel were not expecting. And 22,000 Israelites were killed that day. And the people, the men of Israel, encouraged themselves and set the battle again in array in the place where they set themselves in array the first day. And the children of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until even. And they asked of the Lord, saying, shall I again draw nigh to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother? And the Lord said, go up against him. And the children of Israel came near against the children of Benjamin the second day. And Benjamin went forth against them out of Gibeah the second day, and destroyed down to the ground of the children of Israel again 18,000 men. So 22,000 on the first day, 18,000 on the second day. 22 and 18 is 40. So 10%, 40 out of 400,000. All these drew the sword. Then all the children of Israel and all the people went up and came unto Bethel and wept and sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until even. And they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And the children of Israel asked of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, just a note here about Pinchas being the Kohen then. We haven't heard a peep about Pinchas since the book of Joshua. And that was since the beginning of the book of Joshua, really? Or when they were drawing lots to finally settle the land of Israel after going out to war. The beginning of the book of Joshua, there was some, after they crossed the Jordan, they set up some kind of altar there. I think Pinchas was there for that point. And maybe a little bit later in the book of Joshua. All of the book of Judges haven't heard a peep about the Kohen. And here's Pinchas. Now, Pinchas is an old man at this point, right? So Pinchas, we read about Pinchas in the Torah, in the book of Numbers. There's the portion Pinchas. And he's the one who speared the Israelite man and the Moabite woman who were doing what they were doing in front of the entire congregation of Israel. So that's Pinchas. Now, granted, that happens maybe a year before they enter the land of Israel. So it makes sense that he'd still be the Kohen at the time of entering the land. But it's been like 100 years. So he's an old man.
Wait a sec.
Yeah.
I thought only Caleb and the name just flew out of my head.
Yeah.
The two scouts go. So Pinchas can't survive.
That's a good question, right? How is that? So it's possible that he was under 20 years old when they left Egypt, because there was all those who were 20 years old and older when they left Egypt who were supposed to die in the desert. Okay, so it's possible that he was maybe born in the desert, and if he was born in the desert, he would still, let's say he's born shortly after they leave Egypt, he'd be 40 years old or 39 years old at the time of entering the land of Israel. Okay, so 40 years old at that time, you're already up in years, but this is 100 years later. So how is it that Pinchas is still here? So just throwing that out there. I don't have an answer for it, and it just it causes us to then question the accuracy, the historical accuracy of the story. Okay, that we're reading.
Rabbi, question. There are a couple of places here where Hashem answered Judah should be first. Hashem said, go up against him.
Yes.
How is God speaking to these
Right.
people?
That's a good question too, because we don't know. There's usually an intermediary, and God's speaking to the intermediary, who is then sharing the message to everybody else, like a judge or Joshua. So yes, we don't know. That's another good question. Don't have an answer for you. And it's possible there's some unnamed person who is God is speaking to, or it's possible God's voice is heard by the entire people. We don't know. All right. So on 309, as we finish the English here, as we catch up to where we left off, verse 28, and Pinchas the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, that is before the ark, shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? So maybe your answer, Dove, is right here, God speaking to Pinchas. And the Lord said, go up, for tomorrow I would deliver him into your hand. And Israel set liers in wait against Gibeah round about.
Is the thy in singular or plural?
It's singular. Yes, it's singular in the Hebrew. Beyadecha. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
And if God said that Judah should be the head person, why haven't we heard anything, a peep?
Right. Yes. So these are all editorial questions that are worthy of asking, and I don't have an answer for. Okay. So we still have a long chapter left. It goes through to verse 48. Let's see how much we'll read in the Hebrew before we read the commentary. So we're verse 30 on the bottom of 309. V'ya'alu b'nei Yisrael el b'nei Binyamin bayom ha'shlishi v'ya'archu el ha'giv'ah kefa'am b'fa'am. So the people of Israel went up against the people of Benjamin on the third day, and they arranged themselves at Gibeah or against Gibeah as the other times. Vayetzu v'nei Binyamin likrat ha'am han teku min ha'ir. I'm just just the han teku. This word, it's just an unusual format of a word. Vayachelu lahakot meha'am chalalim kefa'am b'fa'am b'mesilot asher achat ola veit el va'achat giv'ata v'asadeh kishloshim ish b'Yisrael. So I'm going to look at the translation. And the children of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city. And they began, that's han teku min ha'ir, is were drawn away from the city. And they began to smite and kill of the people, as at other times, in the field, in the highways, of which one goes up to Bethel, and the other to Gibeah, about 30 men of Israel. So quite less than the 22,000 and the 18,000 from the other days, only 30 so far. Vayomru b'nei Binyamin, nigafim heim lefanenu kivarishona. Uvenei Yisrael amru, nanusa, taknuhu min ha'ir el hamesilot. And the people of Benjamin said, they are smitten down before us like the first time. But the people of Israel said, let's run away and draw them out of the city to the highway. V'chol ish Yisrael kamu mimakomo, v'ya'archu b'Baal Tamar, v'orev Yisrael, me'niach mimakomo mima'arei gava. So every one of the men of Israel rose up from his place and set themselves in array, like arranged themselves at Baal Tamar, and the liars in wait of Israel broke forth. Is that Meniach? Oh, Megiach mimakomo mimare gava. So the liars in wait of Israel broke forth out of their place, even out of Ma'are Gava. Okay, so we don't know where these places are, but like it's a surprise attack. The Benjaminites had killed 30 Israelites. The Israelites made to run away, but they all got up in their place. Vayavo'u mineged lagiv'a aseret alafim ish bachur mikol Yisrael v'hamilchama kaveda v'hem lo yad'u ki nogat aleihem hara'ah. And there came over against Gibeah 10,000 chosen men out of all of Israel, and the battle was heavy. So it was a tough battle, like a lot of loss of life, but they knew not that evil was close upon them. So who's the they? The people of Israel, the people of Benjamin, who didn't know that evil was close at hand? Let's find out. 35, Vayigof Adonai et Binyamin lifnei Yisrael, Vayashchitu b'nei Yisrael b'Binyamin bayom hahu, Esrim v'chamisha elef umea ish, kol ele sholef charev. And God smote Benjamin before Israel, and the people of Israel slaughtered in Benjamin on that day 25,100 men, all of them bearing sword. Now, how many Benjaminites went up against the 400,000? If we remember, just a second. Oh, it was, and the children of Benjamin, 26,000. 26,000 plus 700 men of Benjamin. So 26,700. And now there were 25,100. So 25,100 were killed out of 26,700. So that's what, 1,600 were left? If my math is right. So 1,600 were left of Benjaminites. Okay, so let's look at the commentary, 30 to 35. Okay, so the bottom of 310. As at other times, a change of tactics discernible by the Benjaminites would have aroused their suspicion. Smite and kill, literally smite slain men. This idiom is known as a proleptic figure of speech. At other times, on the two previous occasions, the field, that is the open country, the highways, possibly two roads joined or crossed at this point, rose up. The main army abandoned their original position and reformed their ranks at another point. Baal Tamar, the place is otherwise unknown. Tradition identifies it with Atara, a ruin near Gibeah. The palm tree suggested to the Targum, that's the Aramaic translation, the plain of Jericho, to others the palm tree of Deborah, from chapter 4. Broke forth, the verb giach is generally used of water gushing forth, but in Aramaic it means to attack, make war upon. Ma'are Geva, the Hebrew is best understood as a compound place name. The first half connected with Ara, be bare, possibly denotes a clearing in a wooded district, which would be used as the hiding place of an ambush. There came, namely, the men who had secreted themselves. They knew not, the subject is the Benjaminites. Evil was done, disaster was imminent, again in verse 41. Okay, let's just see what ancient Israel has to say, what Robert Alter says on these verses. So that's page 213. Below the line, just one comment really for our section that we just read. The highways, unlike derech, which is any kind of road or way, these mesilot are paved roads. About 30 men in this third battle, the casualties they inflict before they are trapped and overwhelmed are insignificant. Okay, so let's keep on going. Maybe we'll read to the end of the chapter now. Vayir'u v'nei Binyamin ki nigafu, right? There's only 1,600 left out of the 25,700 that started. Vayitnu ish Yisrael makom leVinyamin ki vatchu el ha'orev asher samu el hagivah. So the people of Benjamin saw that they were beaten or smitten, and the men of Israel gave place to Benjamin, because they trusted unto the liers in wait, whom they had set against Gibeah. V'ha'orev hechishu vayifshetu el hagivah vayimshoch ha'orev vayach et kol ha'ir lefi harev. And the liers in wait hastened and rushed upon Giv'ah, and the liers in wait drew forth and smote all the city with the edge of the sword. V'hamoed haya leish Yisrael im ha'orev, herev laha'alotam, mas'at ha'ashan min ha'ir. Now there was an appointed sign between the men of Israel and the liers in wait, that they should make a great beacon of smoke rise up out of the city. Yes, go ahead.
I noticed that sometimes they use the term Bnei Yisrael, and
Yes.
and now Ish Yisrael.
Right.
Are they interchangeable, or is that any significant?
Yeah, it's a good point, Alan, and I'm not sure. I would say that Ish Yisrael would be like the fighters, like the soldiers, and the B'nai might be everybody, but I think in the story they're interchangeable because we don't know about the non-fighters. We're only knowing about the fighters. So, but it's possible in 36, it's B'nai Binyamin. So the people of Benjamin saw that they were smitten. So maybe that's the entire population and not just the soldiers. So it's unclear, Alan, but it's a good point.
What does it mean? I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Gave place to in 36, and the men of Israel gave place to Benjamin.
In other words, they let them be. In other words, they didn't finish. These people who were attacking did not finish the attack, because there's still a second wave, these liers in wait, that are supposed to do something. So I think that was the plan, to let, that's what that means.
I think it's almost,
Yeah, go ahead, Dov.
I think it's almost analogous to a screenplay in football. Where
So explain that.
where the blockers have come in, the blockers are there so they let the onrush come in,
Okay.
and then they have a path to go through.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a path for them, and then they have it's like the Indians and the Cowboys. They're running in the canyon, and all of a sudden, all the Indians come down on them.
Right. Yes. So it's just like it's just a planned ambush with the second wave. You think you're done, Benjamin, you might think that we're all done, but we're not done. We got the second wave coming. Okay, 39. Vayahafoch ish Yisrael ba milchama uvinyamin heichel lahakot chalalim beish Yisrael ki shloshim ish Ki amru ach nigaf hu lefanenu kamilchama harishona. And the men of Israel turned in battle, and Benjamin began to smite and kill of the men of Israel about 30 men. For they said, surely they are smitten down before us, as in the first battle. So now that's interesting that they would allow, Israel would allow 30 to be killed by Benjamin as part of this tactic. Vahamas'et hechela la'alot min ha'ir amud ashan, vayifen binyamin acharav, v'hinei Allah chalil ha'ir hashamayama. But when the beacon began to rise up out of the city in a pillar of smoke, the Benjaminites looked behind them, and behold, the whole of the city went up in smoke to heaven. 41. Ve'ish Yisrael hafach, vayibahel ish binyamin, ki ra'ah, ki nag'ah alav hara'ah. And so the people of Israel turned, and the men of Benjamin were amazed or shocked because they saw that evil was touching them or come upon them. 42, Vayifnu lifnei ish Yisrael el derech hamidbar, v'hamilchama hidbikatu. I'm having a hard time reading it because it's an unusual word and an unusual format of the word. V'hamilchama hidbikatu, v'asher mei he'arim mashchitim oto betocho. Therefore, they turned their backs before the men of Israel to the way of the wilderness, but the battle followed hard after them, and they that came out of the city destroyed them in the midst of the men of Israel. 43, Kitru et Binyamin hirdifuhu, menucha hidrichuhu, ad nocha chagiva mimizrach shamesh. They enclosed the Benjaminites round about and chased them and overtook them at their resting place as far as over against Gibeah toward the sunrise. Vayiplu mi binyamin shmona asar elef ish et kol ele anshe chayil. So there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men. So why is this number different from the 25,000 in verse 35? Okay, so I'm just raising that question. There fell of Benjamin 18,000 men. All these were men of valor, or soldiers. But Eshet, it's Eshet Chayil, woman of valor. Anshe Chayil, men of valor. Okay. 45, Vayifnu, Vayanusu Hamidbara El Sela Harimon, Vayeoleluhu Bamesilot, Chameshet Alafim Ish, Vayadbiku Acharav Ad Gidom, Vayaku Mimenu Alpayim Ish. And they turned and fled toward the wilderness unto the rock of Rimmon, and they gleaned of them in the highways 5,000. So you got 18,000, and now 5,000 more, and followed hard, so that's 23, followed hard after them unto Gidom, and smote of them 2,000. There's 25,000. Vayehi kol hanoflim mi binyamin esrim v'chamisha elef ish sholef cherev bayomahu et kol ele anshe chayil. So among all the people who fell from Benjamin, 25,000 men, the sword bearers on that day, all of these were men of valor. Vayifnu vayanusu hamidbara el sela harimon shesh meot ish vayashvu besela rimon arba'a chodashim. So But 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness unto the rock of Rimmon, and abode in the rock of Rimmon 4 months. Ve'ish Yisrael shavu el bnei Binyamin vayakum lefi cherev meir mitom ad behema. Just a second here. I just have to see a text that came in. Okay. So let me say that again. Ve'ish Yisrael shavu el bnei Binyamin vayakum lefi cherev meir mitom ad behema ad kol hanimtza gam kol ha'arim hanimtzaot shilchu va'esh. And the men of Israel turned back upon the children of Benjamin and smote them with the edge of the sword, both the entire city and the cattle and all that they found. Moreover, all the cities which they found, they set on fire. So it's unclear if these 600 stayed alive and the rest were totally destroyed, and all the cities of Benjamin were destroyed. It's unclear. But it seems to be a pretty, well, even if the 600 were alive, it's a pretty annihilation. It's an annihilation and destruction of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, so let's look at the commentary here from 36 to the end of the chapter. So bottom of 311. Having given 36, having given a general account of the battle, the writer proceeds to describe events in greater detail. Gave place, they allowed the Benjaminites to escape into Gibeah. Drew forth, literally drew. Rashi and Kimchi understand the verb as draw out of a sound on trumpets, others as advanced. An appointed sign, so Rashi. Kimchi prefers the more usual meaning of fixed time. They should make a great beacon, literally to multiply to their causing an uprising of the smoke to ascend. Turned in pretended flight. Whole, the noun kalil, is the term for an offering wholly burned on the altar. Of a city, it appears again in Deuteronomy 13. Amazed or terrified, the way of the wilderness, the ravines and uncultivated steep descents of the broken Ephraimite hill country, which extend east of Givah down to the Jordan Valley. The city, literally the cities, which Rashi interprets as the men of the towns along the line of flight who came out to assist the Benjaminites. The translation would then be them that came out of the cities the Israelites destroyed. In the midst of the men of Israel, the Hebrew is in the midst of it. Some refer to the suffix to the city, others to the two contingents of the Israelite army. Enclosed or encircled. Chased, literally caused to pursue. The form of the verb, the hefil of this verb, does not occur elsewhere. Their resting place, the noun menucha, may possibly be a place name. See Yanoach from the same root. Perhaps Manachat, a Benjamite city mentioned in 1 Chronicles. 313, all these. In the text, the accusative particle proceeds with the purpose of adding prominence to what follows, again in verse 46. They turned, the subject is the survivors of the Benjaminite force. Rimmon, the modern Ruman, situated on a rocky hill, about 3 miles east of Beit El, on the verge of the hill country described in the note on verse 42. The fleeing army made for the safety of this rock, but only a small proportion of their number reached the place of refuge. Gleaned, like the small grapes plucked after the main vintage. Gidom, the place is mentioned nowhere else and is unknown. Turned back from pursuing the rest of the fugitives. The children of Benjamin, namely the population of the other cities of that tribe. The entire city, for metom, entire, many Hebrew manuscripts read metim, the city of men, the inhabited city. Minchat Shai rejects this reading. Okay, so we have an utter devastation of the tribe of Benjamin as a result of the rape and killing of the concubine, and setting the stage really for what will come later in Israelite history throughout the rest of the Bible. Okay, so there's a central place that this story has in the history of the people of Israel, and it's fascinating to me that probably most Jewish people today don't know anything about this story, right? Because most of us don't read the book of Judges. I only read the book of Judges in rabbinical school, and it was a survey class, a one-semester class, which was Joshua and Judges together. So I had a whole semester to focus on these two books, but still, and it was somebody who taught the class who wasn't like a regular professor, a Bible professor. It was just somebody in the administration who always taught that class, as opposed to the big name Bible professors who taught other Bible classes. So the book of Judges is kind of like almost like the other books of the Bible, the books of writings, the books that are in the section of writings that are hardly read today in regular Jewish classrooms, and certainly not read in Hebrew school anymore. Now, back in the day when Hebrew school was 3 days a week, there were books like the students would learn Bible stories, so they would learn about Samson, but certainly they wouldn't learn this story. Okay, so but like I said, it kind of sets the stage for how difficult it is to keep the people of Israel unified, and to keep them strong as one unit in spirituality that is committed to the covenant with God and committed to a lawful, just society. So this, okay. So let's look at the commentary of Robert Alter on page 213 below the line. Starting with verse 37, the ambushers drew together and struck the whole town with the edge of the sword. The stratagem used here to capture and destroy the town is identical with the one deployed by the Israelite forces against Ai in Joshua 8. Many scholars think that the writer in Joshua drew on this story. So, in other words, some scholars think that Judges was written before Joshua was. So, we don't know. The time that had been set for the men of Israel with the ambushers was when they sent up a column of smoke. In the parallel episode in Joshua, it's Joshua who gives the signal by raising his javelin as Moses raised his staff against Amalek. Here, we have the more likely military device of a signal fire. The Masoretic text has an anomalous word, herev, after the ambushers, but this is in all likelihood a ditography for ha'orev, the ambushers, and so it has been deleted in the translation. And Benjamin had begun to strike down among the men of Israel about 30 men. The duplicate, verse 31, this duplicates verse 31 and may reflect an editorial glitch. They saw that harm had touched them. They now realize that they are caught in a pincer move between the ambushers and the main Israelite force. They were laying waste to them within it. The wording of the Hebrew is somewhat crabbed, and this trait is reflected in the translation. 600 men stayed at the rock of Rimmon. It seems unlikely that this wilderness crag was either impregnable or invisible to the pursuing army, so the Israelites may have made a decision to spare some remnant of the Benjaminite fighting men. And they struck them by the edge of the sword from the town, from man to beast. This formulation would seem to suggest that Giv'ah and the other Benjaminite towns were put under the ban, the cherem. For the phrase from man to beast, the translation following some manuscripts in two ancient versions read mimetim, literally from people, rather than the Masoretic mitom, unwounded spot. Okay, we have chapter 21 is a short chapter. It's 10:10. So let's see if we can. Is that right that it's a short chapter? It looks like from Alter. Oh, it's not. Sorry. Yeah, we're not going to be able to finish the chapter, but let's see what we can do. Because this is the last chapter in the book of Judges. 3:14. Ve'ish Yisrael nishba bamitzpah lemor ish mimenu lo yitain bito levinyamin leisha. And the men of Israel swore, or made an oath at Mitzpah, saying, no man from us, that is for the entire people of Israel, will give their daughter to a Benjaminite to marry. So, to ensure the utter destruction of Benjamin, they're saying now, even with these 600 men that are remnants, they're going to be celibate. And we're not going to allow our daughters to marry them. 2, Vayavo ha'am Beit El, vayeshvu sham ad ha'erev, lifnei ha'Elohim, vayis'u kolam, vayivku bechi gadol. And the people came to Beit El, and they sat there until the evening before God, and they raised their voice, and they cried a great cry. Vayomru, Lama Adonai Elohei Yisrael, ha'etazot beYisrael, lihipaked hayom miYisrael, shevet echad. And they said, why, God, the God of Israel, did this happen in Israel? Why has this come to pass in Israel? That a tribe, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel. Like they're mourning the fact that a tribe of Israel has now been decimated. Vayehi mimacharat vayashkimu ha'am vayivnu sham mizbeach vaya'alu olot ushlamim. And the next day, the people got up, and they built an altar, and they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. Vayomru b'nei Yisrael, mi asher lo ala b'kahal mikol shiftei Yisrael el Adonai, ki hashvuah hagdola hayata la asher lo ala el Adonai hamitzpah lemor mot yumat. And the children of Israel said, who is there among all the tribes of Israel that came not up in the assembly unto the Lord? Like, remember, 400,000 people gathered? For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not unto the Lord to Mitzpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death. Right? Anybody who wasn't part of this war against Benjamin, who didn't come up here to fight, he should be put to death. Vayinachamu b'nei Yisrael el Binyamin achiv, vayomru nigda hayom shevet achad mi Yisrael. And the children of Israel repented them for Benjamin their brother, and said, there is one tribe cut off from Israel this day. Vayinachamu. That's in modern Hebrew, that means to console. But in biblical Hebrew, it means change course, which is why it's translated as repented. 7, Ma na'aseh lahem lanotarim lenashim va'anachnu nishbanu ba'Adonai levilti tate lahem mibenotenu lenashim. So now they're saying, what should we do? How should we do for wives for them that remain, seeing we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them of our daughters to wives? Like, what are we going to do with these 600 Benjaminites who are left? Vayomru mi echad mi shiftei Yisrael asher lo ala el Adonai hamitzpah v'hinei lo va ish el hamachaneh mi avesh Gilad el hakahal. And they said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel that came not up unto the Lord to Mitzpah? And behold, there came none to the camp from the Yabesh Gilead to the assembly. Vayit paked ha'am v'hinei ein sham ish miyoshvei Yavesh Gilad. When the people were numbered, behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Yavesh Gilad there. Vayishlachu sham ha'edah 12,000 ish mibnei hechayil, vayetzavu otam lemor, lechu v'hikitem et yoshvei Yavesh Gilad lefi charev, v'hanashim v'hataf. And the congregation sent there 12,000 men of the valiantest, and commanded them, saying, Go and smite the inhabitants of Yavesh Gilad with the edge of the sword, with the women and the little ones. V'zeh hadavar asher ta'asu kol zachar v'chol isha yoda'at mishkav zachar tacharimu. And this is the thing you shall do. You shall utterly destroy every male, every woman that has lain by man. So, women who are old enough to have lain with women. Vayimtzeu miyoshvei Yavesh Gilad 400 na'ara betula, asher lo yad'a ish lemishkav zachar, vayaviu otam el hamachaneh Shiloh, asher be'eretz Canaan. And they found among the inhabitants of Yavesh Gilad 400 young virgins that had not known man by lying with him, and they brought them unto the camp to Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. It's interesting you had to tell us that it's in the land of Canaan. Where else is it going to be? Where else are we right now in the story than in the land of Canaan? So why add that note there? Let's read two more sentences. Vayishlechu kol ha'ida, vayidabru el b'nei Binyamin asher b'sela rimon, vayikre'u lahem shalom. And the whole congregation sent and spoke to the children of Benjamin that were in the rock of Rimmon, and proclaimed peace unto them. Vayashav Binyamin ba'eta hi, vayitnu lahem hanashim asher chiyu minashe Yavesh Gilad, velo matzu lahem kain. And Benjamin returned at that time, and they gave them the women whom they had saved alive of the women of Yavesh Gilad, and yet so they sufficed them not. So in other words, I think that means there were 600 Benjaminite men and only 400 of these virgins. V'ha'am nicham leVinyamin ki asa Adonai peretz b'shiftei Yisrael. And the people repented them for Benjamin, because that the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. Okay, let's read the commentary on these verses. Back to 3:14. The Israelites had sworn not to give their daughters in marriage to the Benjaminites. The decision was regretted when it was realized that the tribe was threatened with extinction, and a method was devised whereby this danger was averted. Had sworn in Mitzpah, that is, when they had assembled in Mitzpah before going out to war against Benjamin. This act is not recorded. It's now reported because its implications dawned upon the people. Came to Beit El, see 20:18-26. Some Jewish commentators also interpret here as the house of God in Shiloh. Sor, literally a great weeping. The reason for the lamentation is stated in the next verse. Why has this come to pass, etc.? They complained of the circumstances which had led to the present situation. What mysterious working of providence allowed such a tragedy to happen? An altar, they erected a new altar, that being part of the process of seeking guidance of God. That they had made, etc. Literally, the great oath was concerning. Repented them, 3:15. The phrase means that they had second thoughts. Yavesh Gilad appears again in biblical history in 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. The place is supposed by some authorities to be the modern Meri Amin, about 7 miles from Pella, near a stream which is still called Wadi Yabis. Kaftor Vaferach, however, maintains that Wadi Yabis is some distance from Yavesh Gilad. He was informed that Wadi Yabis is a corruption of Wadi Alias, the Arabic name of Elijah, hence Elijah's stream. Yavesh Gilad is directly east of Beit Sha'an, approximately a 3-day journey. It's called Gofen by the Arabs, meaning dry, corresponding to the Hebrew Yavesh. To Shiloh, see on verse 2, which is in the land of Canaan. The geographical note stresses the fact that the unmarried women were brought across the Jordan. Suffice them not, there were only 400 brides for 600 men. For the root matzah to suffice, see Numbers 11. Repented them of the war which they had conducted against Benjamin. Okay, so let's look at altar on this section. 2:16 in altar. The men of Israel had vowed at Mitzpah. The Hebrew indicates a pluperfect because this solemn vow was taken before the beginning of the war with Benjamin. Why has this come about in Israel? Now, after the victory, the people are confronted with a dilemma because of their binding vow, for its consequence will be the elimination of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. For great was the vow. The second vow, to destroy whoever held back from joining in the war against Benjamin, will be used to find a way out of the first vow. Cut off, the Hebrew uses a rather violent verb, nigda, literally hacked off, instead of the usual nichrat. Some scholars prefer to read nigra as taken away, which would be in keeping with missing in verse 3. Yavesh Gilead, this northern territory to the east of the Jordan, was allied with Benjamin, as will be clear in the story of Saul in 1 Samuel. Many have inferred that the whole story of the civil war and of the place of Yavesh Gilead in its aftermath is meant to discredit Benjamin, Saul's tribe. Go and strike down the inhabitants of Yavesh Gilead. Yavesh Gilead is to be put under the ban, all its population except for female virgins to be massacred. It is historically unlikely that the cherem was practiced by one set of Israelites on another. And as Amit points out, it would have been a singularly bad solution to the dilemma of Benjamin's survival to achieve it by wiping out a whole group of Israelites, men, women, and children. They brought them to the camp at Shiloh. The setting now shifts from Bethel to Shiloh, laying the ground for the opening chapters of the book of Samuel, which are centered in Shiloh. And one more below the line on 2:18, but they did not find enough for them. There are 600 Benjaminites at the rock of Rimmon, so the shortfall in brides is 200. But in all likelihood, the story of the delivery of the 400 young women from Yavesh Gilead and the story of snatching of the dancing girls in the vineyards are two different versions of how the surviving Benjaminites got their brides that have been edited together, with the numerical deficiency introduced in the first story so that it can be made up in the second. Okay, we haven't read the rest of the story yet to know about these dancing ladies in the vineyard. Okay. So it's interesting that the possibility of this whole story being here is to discredit Saul, who's going to be chosen as the first king of Israel, and he's a Benjaminite. And Mordechai, by the way, is a Benjaminite. Mordechai from the book of Esther. So the Benjamin doesn't end up being so bad in the end. One of the heroes of, if you ask people today who's a hero from the Bible, you might include Mordechai in that list. And Mordechai Ish Yemini, it says, he's a Benjaminite. So we'll stop here for today. We'll finish the chapter next time. So again, we're not meeting next Friday because I'll be out of town, but the Friday after that, the 24th, well, be sure to have your book of Judges with you and the book of Samuel too, because we'll go from one to the other next time. So have a good rest of the day, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. And if you're coming to dinner tonight, hopefully we'll see you at the Shabbat dinner tonight. Take care.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.